Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome back to another video as we cover the Blue Jays in the great World Series saga against the LA Dodgers. The first two games have already happened. One was a major crash, and the other was a major win for us. So we're going to talk about both these games. Game one, of course, let's cover first. 11-4, something to be very proud of. Some very heavy hitters up against that game. So Brandon, let's go over that coverage first, because I want to start off with a positive here.
Yeah, I think, we talked about it in our preview video, but it was really important for the Blue Jays not to lose home field advantage right away like they did against the Mariners, and they did their job in game one. Addison Barger obviously had the, you know, historic pinch hit grand slam home run, first time that's ever happened in World Series history. And the offense was, shut down a little bit in the first time through the order, but then they, have scored 2 runs in the fourth, and then they had that explosive 9 run sixth inning that obviously proved to be the difference. And it was just, obviously it was a lot of guys doing it. Alejandro Kirk had a great game, went 3 for 3 with a home run. Varsho had a home run as well. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had 2 hits. I mean, again, it's what we've talked about with the Blue Jays this entire postseason run. It's a deep lineup. They can beat you from every spot in the order, and we really saw it again, especially in that sixth inning. It was really impressive. Obviously, Blake Snell's been brilliant all season. He's been dominant in the pub, and we've covered it when they faced the Brewers in the NLCS. He has been dominant all postseason. So to see the Blue Jays get to him in that sixth inning is a really positive sign moving forward. Obviously, again, the Dodgers' biggest strength is the quality of their starting rotation, which obviously we'll talk about that in our Game Two recap in a moment. But overall, this was just a really important win. Trey Savage had a nice start. Obviously, wasn't brilliant, but had a nice start. And the bullpen outside of Braden Fisher had was pretty much locked down and did what they needed to do to ensure this victory in Game One.
Absolutely. I wanted to also shout out Trey Savage for a second because there was a lot of buzz about, again, who was going to start and how it's going to go. I mean, when the lineup was announced of who was going to be playing for the Dodgers in the World Series, not a single person on this list is not a heavy hitter.
Mhm.
From Shohei Ohtani, who's starting, to, Andy Pajes, the last guy who's going to be, going up. Nobody here is a bad player, right? Again, it's why they won a World Series last year. It's why they made it to the World Series this year. And Trey Savage, for the most part, shut almost everybody down in game one. Again, game two, it was a little bit of a different story when it came to these players, but regardless, for game one, it was quite incredible. 11-4 is nothing to, bat an eye about. And again, it wasn't just our usual heavy hitters like George Springer and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. who was really producing. It was people, like Ernie Clement, who is still an amazing player, Alejandro Kirk, Nathan Lukes. I mean, again, these are great players, but see these people really stepping up was great. I want to transfer over to a second to last night's game as of this recording, which went a little bit differently. For the first 6 innings, Kevin Gausman did an amazing time shutting down the Dodgers, but then things kind of fell off the rails a little bit.
Yeah, it was again going back to the Dodgers' strength. It is more than their great lineup, more than some of their good relievers. It's their starting rotation. And, Yoshinobu Yamamoto just threw a complete game against the Milwaukee Brewers in the NLCS, and he just did it to the Toronto Blue Jays. He's more than living up to that, to his contract as the highest paid, the biggest contract for a pitcher in baseball history. He was dominant. There's really not much to say. I mean, sometimes. Again, the Blue Jays scored 11 runs on the Dodgers in game one. They can clearly beat this pitching staff. Sometimes, though, you just run into a pitcher who's just really hot, who's just better than the offense is on a given night. And that's what happened in game two. Yamamoto, struck out 8 guys over, obviously 9 innings in a complete game. No walks, only allowed 4 hits in that one earned run. And it's one of those situations where Kevin Gausman was really good through 6 innings. Really, he only allowed, what, one run in those first 6 innings. It was a tie game, and then obviously he came back out for the seventh, was a little bit wobbly, and then Louis Varland wasn't great in the eighth inning, and obviously that ended up proving to be the difference in a lower scoring ball game. But again, this is just the nature of how the Dodgers are built. It's just, yeah, you got past Blake Snell in game one. You couldn't get past Yamamoto in game two, and now obviously you've got the situation where now you head to Los Angeles and you've got Tyler Glasnow and then Shohei Ohtani in games three and four, and then you're probably going to face Blake Snell again in game five. It's just a murderer's row of Cy Young winning pitchers, and so it's just again all the credit to the Blue Jays for winning that first game at home. At least forcing the issue with the Dodgers. Ensuring that there is at least a game five, and hopefully can push it back to Toronto for game six and seven if that's necessary. But I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's just this is the Dodgers' strength. We saw it in Game 2, and the Blue Jays are gonna have to find a way to overcome it.
I want to kind of focus a little bit outside of the game bubble for a second here. If you look at articles from like the Boston Globe and the New York Times, something I find really interesting is that I would say at least 75% of America is also not rooting for the American team here. They're rooting for the out of country team. So again, we've
Yeah.
talked about it before, but this is the underdog team that everybody wants to win here. And I think that's what a lot of people are also, rooting for. When I think it was the first game where Otani first took, the mound, took the mound, excuse me, went up to bat. Again, we're playing in Toronto's territory. People are screaming at Shohei Otani that they do not want him there. So I think that is also really putting pressure on the LA Dodgers. And for the Dodgers, an American team, to have Americans say, we don't want you to win this year, I think is also really probably pushing them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, it's always good in sports when there's a villain. The Dodgers are obviously the villain of baseball right now. I mean, obviously, if there's a lockout in 2027, they'll probably be the main sort of subject of that lockout with the way they've handled all these big contracts and signing all these superstar free agents. But I mean, yeah, it's sort of fun that the Blue Jays, obviously the Blue Jays are the underdog because the Dodgers are the Dodgers, but it's fun that the Blue Jays are, sort of the team that most, even the bystanders, right, are rooting for. Even the teams that, aren't playing anymore, the fans of those teams are generally rooting for the Blue Jays. And so again, obviously when they go to Los Angeles over the next 3 games, it's going to be a very hostile environment. Dodgers fans are very passionate. Trust me, they'll be there in droves in LA. And it's going to be very difficult for the Blue Jays to hang around in those games. But that being said, again, we saw them eliminate the Yankees on the road in New York. That's not an easy thing to do. We saw them take 2 games in Seattle after they lost the first 2 games in Toronto. That was not easy to do. So this is a team that can win on the road in the playoffs. I'm not worried about it. Obviously, it's just a situation of, especially, looking to game 3 and 4, it's a disadvantage in the starting pitching matchup. Max Scherzer's not better than Tyler Glasnow. Shane Bieber is a really good pitcher, but he's not better than Shohei Ohtani. So it's really just a situation of, can the Blue Jays, again, can the offense, especially 1 through 9, every guy in the order, just piece together these hits. Again, you're not going to have another 9 run sixth inning every, you're not going to have that every single game. But can you just have these innings where you piece together hits, you set up guys like Alejandro Kirk and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and George Springer, and if you can, obviously that's when that's when they can put crooked numbers on the board. And that's when that's where the Blue Jays do their best damage.
Absolutely. I think the closing thing that I want to say here is, ironically, we saw it in the last few games before the World Series where the Blue Jays, for some strange reason, at home they do okay, and then when they hit the road they do amazing. So
Hmm.
now that we're headed to LA, there's, all bets are off on what's going to happen. It seems like tension with, fans is what gets them going. So hopefully that's what's going to happen in the next game. And then when they get home, it may be the closer and, knock on wood, but we get a World Series ring on our fingers. But only time will tell, as I always say. We'd love to hear what you're thinking right now in the comment section below. And as always, we'll be responding to every question and answer.